I was standing in the living room of two strangers when the man in front of me grabbed his chest and collapsed. His wife screamed so loud it didn't even sound human, like the air had been ripped right out of her lungs. And me. I was frozen for half a second. Then my hands started moving before my brain caught up. Phone, emergency number, address. But here's the part that still doesn't feel real. Before the paramedics even reached the front porch, two plainclothes investigators pulled into the driveway behind them. And the second one of them stepped inside. He looked straight at me and said, "Ma'am, the man you're engaged to doesn't exist." I didn't see it coming. Stay till the end, because the twist that followed shocked everyone, including the people who raised him, or at least, the people he claimed were his parents. But that wasn't even the worst part. Because the truth didn't just destroy my wedding plans. It nearly killed someone. And it exposed a kind of betrayal that doesn't leave bruises. It leaves families bankrupt, ashamed, and broken. My name is Maya Ellis. I'm 30 years old, and I work as a pediatric nurse in Lake Haven, a small fictional town where everyone knows your business before you do. I've spent most of my adult life wiping tears off kids' cheeks and telling nervous parents, "It's going to be okay," even when I wasn't sure it would be. I thought I was good at reading people. Turns out, I was only good at believing what I wanted to believe. I met Ethan Hale at a community fundraiser event in early 2022. Not a fancy one, more like folding tables, donated desserts, and a microphone that kept squealing. I was there because my hospital sponsored it. He was there because he worked in finance and donated a big check. That should have impressed me, and it did. But what really pulled me in was how normal he seemed. Ethan wasn't the loud guy, trying to be the center of attention. He was calm. He listened. When I talked, he didn't just wait for his turn to speak. He actually remembered things. Like that I hated cilantro. Like that I'd grown up with a mother who worked 3 jobs. Like that I had a secret dream of owning a small house with a porch swing and a big kitchen window. He would bring me coffee without asking what I wanted because he already knew. He'd leave little notes in my bag before long shifts. And when I caught the flu one winter, he showed up with soup and a heating pad like it was the most natural thing in the world. It wasn't grand, flashy love. It was the kind of love that feels safe. And after the kind of childhood I had, after watching adults break promises like they were nothing, safe felt like everything. After 6 months, I stopped questioning it. After a year, I started building my future around it. After almost 2 years, he proposed. It was quiet. No big restaurant. No crowd. Just a walk near the lake at sunset, and him taking my hand like he was afraid I'd disappear. "Maya," he said, voice shaking just enough to feel real, "I don't want a future where you're not in it." Then he pulled out a ring. Not enormous, but beautiful. Simple and thoughtful, exactly my style. And yes, I cried. I said yes. Of course I did. But even in the middle of that moment, there was one shadow that never fully left our relationship. One topic Ethan always found a way to dodge. His parents. At first, it didn't feel like a red flag. Plenty of people have messy families. I didn't know my father, and my mother raised me with a backbone made of pure steel. So I didn't judge Ethan for not having a perfect family story. But Ethan didn't just avoid the topic. He shut it down. The first time I asked, maybe 4 months into dating, I said it casually. "Do your parents live nearby?" And his face changed. Not annoyance. Not boredom. Fear. Like I'd opened a door in his mind he'd spent years barricading. He looked past me, like he was watching a memory play on a wall. Then he said carefully, "They're not good people." I remember the exact words. "They're heavy drinkers, Maya, always have been. And they're the kind of drinkers who hurt people without even remembering it the next day." I didn't push. But later, when we got more serious, I tried again. He told me he left home young, that his parents chose the bottle over him, that if I met them, they'd try to manipulate me, that they'd poison what we had. And then he said something that made me feel cruel for even asking. Meeting them would be like digging up a grave I worked hard to bury. So I stopped asking. I told myself I was respecting boundaries. I told myself I was being supportive. But my older sister, Jenna, didn't buy it. Jenna has the kind of instincts that make her impossible to lie to. The first time she met Ethan, she smiled, hugged him, offered him food. But later, after he left, she stood in my kitchen and said, "He's polished." I laughed. "That's not a crime." Jenna shook her head. "Polished isn't the word. It's controlled, like he's always 3 steps ahead of the room." I rolled my eyes. "He's just confident." She looked me dead in the face and said, "A man who won't let you meet his family isn't protecting you from them. He's protecting himself from you." We fought. Not screaming, but sharp words that left bruises anyway. I told her she was projecting. She told me I was rushing into something because I was tired of being alone. And maybe she was right about that part. We didn't speak much for a week. Then Ethan came over with flowers and apologized for getting in between us, even though he hadn't said a single thing. He just knew how to smooth the air. Looking back, that should have scared me. But I was already in too deep. When we started planning the wedding, Ethan insisted on something simple. Small guest list. No big bachelor party. No old friends flying in. Just me, my family, a few coworkers, and a couple people from his side. Whenever I asked who those people were, he said, "Guys from work." No names. No stories. No photos. Just guys from work. I found it strange, but I told myself not everyone keeps the same friendships forever. The wedding venue was a restored historic building in downtown Lake Haven called the Westbridge Hall. Old brick walls, tall windows, warm lights. It was the kind of place that makes you feel like your life is finally coming together. But as the wedding got closer, little things started to itch at the edges of my mind. Things I would have brushed off before. Ethan said he was a financial consultant. But if you asked what he did, the answer was always foggy. Private clients. Portfolio management. High-value accounts. It sounded impressive. It also sounded like a business card designed to end questions. He took calls in his office with the door closed. And when he got off the phone, he'd be cheerful, too cheerful. Like flipping a switch. And then there was the drinking. He wasn't falling down drunk. He wasn't violent. But he drank often. A glass in the afternoon. 2 with dinner. 1 more to relax. And I remember thinking, how can someone be so traumatized by alcoholic parents and still keep alcohol within arm's reach at all times? The first time I gently mentioned it, he smiled like I was adorable. "Social drinking is an addiction, Maya. I know the difference. Trust me." And I did. I was very good at trusting him. Until the week, everything started to crack. It began with a phone call that wasn't meant for me. Ethan was in the shower, and his phone was on the kitchen counter. It buzzed once. Then again. Then again. The screen lit up with the same caller ID repeatedly. Cedar Ridge Medical Center. I didn't answer. I didn't even pick up the phone. But when Ethan came out, towel around his waist, I mentioned it like it was nothing. "Hey, the hospital called a bunch of times. Everything okay?" I'll never forget how fast his expression dropped. Like the warmth slid right off his face. He stared at me for a beat too long, then forced a laugh. "Wrong number. It happens. Hospitals call people all the time." He leaned in, kissed my forehead, and reached for his phone like it was burning. Then he walked away, already typing. I stood there holding my coffee mug, suddenly not thirsty anymore. Because Cedar Ridge Medical Center wasn't far. It was about 30 minutes from us. And Ethan had always told me his parents lived across the country. Different state, different life. So why would a nearby hospital be calling him? That night, I couldn't sleep. My brain kept circling the same question. And then the curiosity turned into something sharper. What if he lied? But that wasn't the worst part. Because the next thing I noticed wasn't a phone call. It was the money. We had a joint savings account for the wedding and our future. He encouraged it. He said it would make us feel like a team. Every month, I transferred part of my paycheck into it. Not glamorous amounts, but steady. I believed in building something brick by brick. One Tuesday evening, I logged in to check the balance. I expected to see just under $30,000. I saw something else. Nearly $7,000 was missing. My stomach dropped so hard I thought I might faint. When I asked Ethan about it, I tried to sound calm. Not accusatory. Just confused. His answer came too quickly. Oh, I moved it temporarily. It's in a short-term growth fund. It'll come back with a return. I blinked. What fund? He waved a hand. It's complicated, but it's safe. Can you show me the paperwork? He smiled like I was a child asking why the sky was blue. Babe, if I had to show paperwork for everything I do, I'd never get anything done. Trust me. There it was again. Trust me. And I hated myself for this, but I nodded. Because confronting him felt like tearing open the only safe thing I thought I had. But then, 4 days later, I found something I can't forget. It was accidental. I was putting a bag into the trunk of his car. His spare tire compartment wasn't fully closed, so I pushed it down. That's when I saw it. A bottle. Not water. Not soda. Hard liquor, wrapped in a towel like it was being hidden from a parent. My hands went cold. This man told me his parents were alcoholics who destroyed his life. But he hid alcohol like someone who knew it was wrong. That night, when he came home, I didn't mention it. Instead, I watched him. He poured a drink without measuring. He drank fast. Then he kissed me like nothing was wrong. And I realized something that made my chest ache. Ethan wasn't afraid of alcoholism. He was afraid of being seen. Then came the moment that finally pushed me past denial. 2 weeks before the wedding, I was looking for my birth certificate and passport because we planned a honeymoon. Ethan told me I could store important documents in a box in his closet. While digging through it, I found my passport. And behind it, I found a shoebox that wasn't mine. Inside was a photograph. A younger Ethan, maybe early 20s, standing between two smiling adults at what looked like a graduation. They were dressed nicely. Proud. Happy. The woman's eyes looked kind. The man's hand rested on Ethan's shoulder like he'd done it 1,000 times. I turned the photo over. In neat handwriting it read, "Proud of you always. Love, Mom and Dad." No bitterness. No fear. No hint of the monsters Ethan described. I stared at it so long my eyes hurt. When Ethan got home, I showed him the photo gently. I expected anger. Defensiveness. But what he did was worse. He cried. Not a single tear. He sobbed like someone who'd been stabbed. "That was before everything went bad," he whispered. "Before the drinking got worse." Then he looked at me with watery eyes and said, "Do you think I'm lying about my trauma?" And suddenly, I felt like a villain. Like I was cruel for wanting clarity. So I apologized. I hugged him. I promised I believed him. And I put the photo back. For 4 days, I tried to forget it. Then my sister Jenna called me. Her voice had that tone, the one that means she already crossed a line and knows you'll be angry. "Maya," she said, "listen before you hang up." I sat on my couch, stomach tight. "What did you do?" I ran a background search on Ethan. My heart slammed. You what? I didn't do it to hurt you, she said quickly. I did it because something felt off. I stood up, packing. You had no right. Maya, there are gaps, she interrupted. Addresses that don't match, work history that doesn't line up, and there's a flagged alias. I stopped walking. Alias? Jenna exhaled. I'm telling you because I love you. Please just look at it. I hung up on her. Then I cried. Not because she hurt me. Because some part of me knew she might be right. That night, Ethan slept peacefully. I lay awake, staring into darkness, feeling like I was sharing a bed with a stranger. By morning, I made a decision I never thought I'd make. If Ethan wouldn't introduce me to his parents, I would introduce myself. Whatever I found, whatever ugly truth lived behind his stories, I needed to know before I walked down an aisle toward a man I might not truly know. I just didn't understand how deep the lie went. Ethan announced he had a 3-day work event in another city. He packed neatly, kissed me, told me not to stress. And the moment his car disappeared down the street, my chest loosened like a rope had been cut. This was my window. The first thing I did was go into his office. I didn't want to snoop. I told myself I was looking for reassurance. Something that would prove Jenna was wrong. Something that would prove the hospital calls were nothing. His office was spotless, almost unnaturally. But one thing stood out. A desk drawer with a lock. I'd asked about it once. Tax documents, Ethan said. Boring. Now, staring at that lock, I remembered something. I'd seen him open it late one night. With a key. I searched for that key like my life depended on it. Jacket pockets. Coat linings. Old backpacks. Finally, tucked into a winter coat he hadn't worn in months, I found it. Small brass key. My hands shook so badly, I dropped it twice before I got it into the lock. The drawer slid open, and my stomach dropped. It wasn't tax forms. It was letters. Bundled together. All with the same return address. Frank and Lorraine Mercer. 19 Willowbrook Drive. Briar Glen, Ashford County. Not across the country. Not far away. Less than 40 minutes from my apartment. I sat on the floor and opened the first letter. Then another. Then another. And with every page, my heart broke in a new way. Please, Ethan, just let us know you're safe. We don't know what we did wrong. Your father sits by the window every night. I pray you come home. They weren't angry. They weren't manipulative. They sounded like parents drowning in grief, begging their child to throw them a rope. I read until my eyes burned. These letters spanned almost 2 years. And Ethan never responded. He kept them like trophies, or like reminders of something he controlled. I should have stopped there. I should have left, packed my things, and disappeared. But curiosity is a dangerous thing. Because once you crack a lie, you want to see what's inside. So I drove to 19 Willowbrook Drive the next morning. The drive felt unreal, like I was floating through someone else's life. My hands were sweating on the steering wheel. I rehearsed what I'd say. I'm Maya. I'm engaged to Ethan. I just wanted to meet you. But when I turned onto their street, I almost pulled over. Because the house didn't match Ethan's stories at all. It was modest, clean, and cared for. A small garden. Wind chimes on the porch. A welcome sign. No broken bottles. No chaos. Just quiet normalcy. I sat in my car for 5 minutes staring, trying to calm my breathing. Then I got out, walked up the path, and rang the doorbell. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the door opened. A woman stood there, mid-60s, gray hair pulled back, wearing an apron dusted with flour. Her eyes were alert. Sober. Warm. She looked like she baked cookies for neighbors and remembered birthdays. Hello, she said cautiously. My throat tightened. My name is Maya Ellis, I managed. I'm engaged to Ethan. I watched her face drain of color like someone poured water over paint. Her hand clutched the edge of the door. No, she whispered. No, that's not possible. My stomach turned. What do you mean? Her eyes filled with tears. Our son Ethan, she said, voice shaking, died. The world tilted. I grabbed the porch railing to steady myself. Died, I repeated. No, that can't be. He's alive. He left yesterday, She shook her head harder now, tears spilling. He died 3 years ago, car accident. We buried him. I couldn't breathe. My engagement ring felt like it was burning my finger. I stared at her, unable to speak. Then she stepped back and whispered, You need to come inside. Inside, the house smelled like cinnamon and laundry detergent. Photos lined the walls. A young man, Ethan's face, Ethan's smile, appeared in several pictures. But he looked different. Softer. More real. Like he wasn't performing for the camera. The woman led me to the kitchen table, hands trembling. My name is Lorraine, she said. My husband, Frank, he's in the living room. Frank. Footsteps came slowly. A man appeared, late 60s, strong shoulders, tired eyes. He looked at me like I was a ghost. Lorraine's voice cracked. She says she's engaged to Ethan. Frank's knees seemed to weaken. He sat down hard. Then he stared at me with a kind of pain I can't describe. Tell us everything, he said. So I did. I told them about meeting him. Dating him. The proposal. The wedding planned in 6 weeks. I told them what Ethan told me about his parents being violent alcoholics. With every sentence, Lorraine's face crumpled more. Frank's jaw clenched until I thought it would break. When I finished, Lorraine whispered, We don't drink. Frank nodded once, slow. My father was an alcoholic, he said. We promised we'd never touch it, not once. My mind flashed to the hidden bottle in the trunk, to his casual afternoon drinks. My skin went cold. Then Frank stood up and walked to a cabinet. He pulled out a thick folder and laid it on the table. We were going to show this to the police, he said, but we didn't know where to start. Inside were bank statements, wire transfers, loan documents, pages and pages of numbers that told the same story in a language grief understands perfectly. Money leaving their accounts in chunks. At first small, then bigger, then devastating. Lorraine's voice was hollow. He came to us after Ethan died, she said. A year after, he looked like him, sounded like him. He said he was a cousin. My stomach dropped. A cousin, I whispered. Frank nodded, eyes glassy. He said Ethan would have wanted us to help him, that he was in danger, that someone was after him because of something he witnessed. It hit me like ice. A fake crisis. A dramatic story. An excuse to drain their savings. Lorraine wiped her cheeks. He said we couldn't tell anyone, she whispered, that it would put us at risk, that this was confidential. They believed him. Because grief makes people desperate for connection. And this man, my fiancé, had used their dead son as a key to open their hearts and their bank accounts. Frank flipped to the last page of the folder. A total written in his shaky handwriting. $192,400. Almost $200,000. Retirement. Life savings. Gone. And then Lorraine said something that made my stomach turn even more. He told us the reason he was being hunted. She swallowed hard, staring at me like she hated herself for what she was about to say. He said it was because of you. My throat closed. What? He said his girlfriend was connected to dangerous people, Frank added, voice rough. That he had to hide, that he was protecting her. I sat back like I'd been slapped. For 2 years, Lorraine had hated me without meeting me. prayed against me, blamed me, all because a liar needed a villain in his story. I couldn't speak. And then Frank's breathing changed. It started shallow. He pressed his hand to his chest. Lorraine stood up instantly. "Frank," she said, panic rising. "Frank, what's wrong?" He tried to answer. Couldn't. His face turned gray. Sweat beaded on his forehead. Then he stumbled, caught the edge of the table, and collapsed onto the floor. Lorraine screamed his name. I snapped into nurse mode without thinking. Phone out. Emergency number. Address. My voice shook, but I forced it steady. My patient is a male, late 60s, chest pain, shortness of breath, possible cardiac event. We need an ambulance now. As I gave the address, Lorraine knelt beside Frank, shaking. And as I tried to keep Frank conscious, I heard tires crunching on gravel outside. Sirens. Then car doors. Then footsteps, fast, purposeful. The paramedics arrived first. They moved with practiced speed. Oxygen mask. Monitor pads. Reassuring voices. But behind them came two people who didn't wear medical uniforms. A man and a woman in plain clothes, faces serious, eyes scanning the room. The man pulled out an identification badge. "Ma'am," he said to Lorraine, gentle but firm, "we're investigators with the National Financial Crimes Bureau. We need to speak with you." Lorraine looked up, wild-eyed. "My husband is dying." The woman investigator raised her hands slightly. "We understand. We're not here to interfere. We were already on our way. Your bank flagged suspicious filings tied to forged documents." My heart pounded. The male investigator's eyes landed on me. "And you are?" My mouth went dry. "My name is Maya Ellis," I said. "I'm engaged to Ethan Hale." Both investigators went still. Then the man said something that made my blood turn to ice. "There is no legal record of an Ethan Hale matching your fiancé's identity." My vision blurred. The room felt like it tilted again. The paramedics lifted Frank onto a stretcher. Lorraine followed them out, crying. I stood there in the kitchen, surrounded by flour dust and family photos, while two investigators stared at me like I was standing next to a bomb that hadn't detonated yet. And the scariest part, they looked like they'd been expecting this. The next few hours passed in a blur. Frank was taken to Cedar Ridge Medical Center. Lorraine rode with him. I followed in my car because I couldn't just leave. Not after walking into their lives like a grenade. At the hospital, doctors said it wasn't a full heart attack, stress-induced angina, severe but manageable. He'd need monitoring, medication, rest. In a small conference room, the investigators spoke to me. They didn't offer comfort. They offered facts. And those facts broke the last piece of my old life. The man I knew as Ethan Hale was actually Caleb Rourke. Multiple aliases. Multiple states. A pattern. He'd date stable women, kind women, women with routine jobs and a normal life. Then he'd use the relationship as a shield. A respectable face. A future wedding. While behind the curtain, he drained older victims through emotional manipulation and forged paperwork. The female investigator slid a photo toward me. Caleb with different hair. Different glasses. Different name on the ID. Same eyes. Same smile. A smile that suddenly looked like a weapon. "How many?" I whispered. "4 confirmed families," she said. "Over 700,000 in total losses." I felt nausea crawl up my throat. I thought of Lorraine's shaking hands. Frank collapsing. I thought of my missing money. The hidden bottle. The hospital calls. Everything connected. Then the investigator leaned forward. "We can arrest him," she said, "but we want him clean, recorded, no loopholes." I swallowed. "What do you need from me?" The male investigator said, "Your wedding appointments are perfect cover. We need you to get him talking about finances, about accounts, about moving money. They wanted me to wear a wire, to smile at a man who'd lied to my face for 2 years, to pretend I didn't know he used dead people as costumes. I stared at the table. My hands trembled. "Can you do it?" the woman asked quietly. I thought about Frank on a hospital bed, Lorraine crying into her apron, and the version of myself who almost walked down an aisle into a prison of lies. I lifted my head. "Yes," I said, "I can do it." The next 2 days were the longest of my life. Caleb Ethan came home like nothing happened. He kissed my cheek. He asked about my day. He laughed at my jokes. He told me about work meetings that were probably fake. And I played my role. Because here's something I learned. When a liar believes you're still fooled, they get careless. On the 3rd day, we had a scheduled, final planning meeting at Westbridge Hall. Cake flavors, seating, payment schedule. The investigators wired me before I went in. A small device taped under my clothes that felt like it weighed 100 pounds. My heart hammered the entire drive. Caleb drove with one hand on the wheel, relaxed, talking about how excited he was to start our life. He even reached over and squeezed my knee like he was the sweetest man in the world. And I wanted to scream. Instead, I smiled. Because the revenge wasn't going to be loud. It was going to be legal. It was going to be permanent. Inside Westbridge Hall, the event coordinator greeted us. Samples sat on a table, cake, frosting, fillings. Caleb acted like a groom. Charming. Attentive. He joked with the staff. He tasted chocolate and made a dramatic face like he was on a cooking show. I forced myself to breathe. Then I guided the conversation where it needed to go. "Babe," I said softly, "I've been thinking about our savings. The money you moved, when will it come back? I just want to feel secure." Caleb smiled. That smooth, confident smile. "It's already working," he said. "By the time we're back from our honeymoon, we'll be up." "Up how much?" He shrugged. "Depends, but enough to put a down payment on a house, maybe more." I nodded, playing innocent. "And it's in your name." He chuckled like I was adorable. "It's better if it's not directly tied to us. Less visibility." There it was. The slip. I swallowed hard. "Visibility?" I asked. "Why would we need less visibility?" Caleb's eyes flickered. Just for a second. Then he recovered. "It's just smart finance, Maya. Don't stress your head with it." But I pressed gently. "Teach me," I said. "I want to understand. I want to be your partner." He relaxed again. Because predators love being admired. He started talking, too much. Mentioning accounts, transfers, moving it around. He didn't use real jargon correctly, but he said enough to reveal intent. And then, right as he lifted his fork for another bite, the doors opened. 3 people walked in. 2 in plain clothes. 1 uniformed officer. The male investigator spoke clearly. "Caleb Rourke, you are under arrest for financial fraud, identity theft, and document forgery." Caleb froze. His fork hovered midair. His face changed the way it had after the hospital calls, like the mask slipped. First confusion. Then calculation. Then cold anger. He looked at me. "Maya," he said softly, warning in his tone. "What is this?" I didn't raise my voice. I didn't throw the ring. I didn't slap him. I simply said the truth. "You used people's love like a bank account." His eyes narrowed. He pushed his chair back fast. For a second, I thought he might run. He did try 2 steps. That's all he got. The officer grabbed him. The investigator read his rights. The wedding staff stared in shock. Someone dropped a tray. The sound echoed in the high-ceiling room like a final bell. Caleb struggled, then went still. He looked at me one last time. Not begging. Not apologizing. Just staring, like he was memorizing my face as an enemy. He was escorted out in handcuffs. And I stood there in Westbridge Hall, surrounded by cake samples and wedding folders, watching the life I thought I had dissolved like sugar in water. Before we continue, if you're still with me, take 1 second to like the video and subscribe. And comment below, what would you have done the moment you found those letters? I read your comments, and they genuinely matter. Now, hear what happened after. The legal process took months. Caleb's real identity was confirmed through fingerprints and records. He'd used multiple names, fake employment histories, and stolen documents to build a believable life. He didn't just lie, he manufactured reality. Frank recovered slowly. Stress does strange things to the heart. Sometimes betrayal hurts in a way the body can't hold. Lorraine visited him every day, exhausted but steady. And somehow, I became part of their routine too. At first, it was awkward. I was the stranger who showed up and brought disaster. But Lorraine never blamed me. She held my hands in the hospital hallway and said something I'll never forget. He fooled you because you have a good heart. Don't let his evil make you ashamed of your goodness. I cried right there, next to the vending machines. Because for weeks I'd felt stupid. Guilty. Like I should have known. But manipulation is designed to make you doubt yourself. That's the point. Caleb tried to bargain. He offered partial restitution. He offered information. He even tried to claim he loved me. But the investigators had recordings, bank trails, forged documents, and testimony from multiple victims. The case was strong. When court finally came, the room was full. Not because Caleb was important. Because his victims were. Older couples. A widowed aunt. A man who'd sold his truck thinking he was saving family. People who'd been embarrassed into silence until they realized they weren't alone. One by one, they spoke. And every story carried the same pattern. A crisis. A plea. A promise. Then disappearance. When it was my turn, I stood and kept it simple. I wasn't planning revenge, I said. I was planning a wedding, but the truth gave me a choice: stay quiet and protect his image, or speak and protect the next person. I looked at Caleb. He didn't flinch. No remorse. Just empty confidence. So I chose truth, I said, and I'd choose it again. Caleb was sentenced to a long prison term and ordered to pay restitution. Everyone knew restitution doesn't heal everything. Money can't replace trust. It can't replace years stolen. It can't undo Frank's collapse on the kitchen floor. But the sentence did one thing that mattered. It stopped him from doing it again. Some funds were recovered, hidden accounts, partial assets. Not enough. But something. And then something happened that surprised me. The town stepped up. A local community group organized a fundraiser for victims of financial fraud. My hospital coworkers donated. Jenna, my sister who I'd yelled at, quietly handled logistics like a machine, never once saying, "I told you so." Westbridge Hall refunded part of my deposit, even though they didn't have to. Because sometimes people see injustice and decide to be better than the rules require. I took a portion of what was raised and brought it to Frank and Lorraine. Frank looked at the check, hands shaking. He didn't speak for a long time. Then he whispered, "We might keep the house." Lorraine started crying. And that was the moment my anger finally shifted. Because the revenge wasn't watching Caleb get arrested. The revenge was watching the people he tried to destroy stand back up. The wedding was canceled, obviously. I lost money. I lost time. I lost the future I thought I'd built. But I gained something I didn't expect. A clearer version of myself. And an unexpected kind of family. Once Frank was stable, I started visiting them on Sundays. At first, it was to check in. Then it became routine. Lorraine taught me how to bake bread from scratch. Frank would sit on the porch and tell stories about his son, the real Ethan. The boy who laughed too loud. Who helped neighbors carry groceries. Who used to dance badly in the kitchen just to make his mother smile. That's when the grief hit me in a new way. Because I realized Caleb didn't only steal money. He stole a name. He stole a dead young man's face. And he used it like a costume. One Sunday, Frank looked at me and said, "You know, for a while, I thought we were being punished. Like losing Ethan wasn't enough, so life took everything else too. But then you showed up." I swallowed hard. "I didn't mean to." He shook his head. "No, you showed up with truth. You showed up with courage, and you didn't run." Lorraine nodded. "You're not the daughter-in-law we expected," she said softly, "but you're someone we're grateful for." I cried in their kitchen again. I cried a lot that year. Not dramatic sobbing every day, but quiet tears that come from realizing you survived something you thought would break you. I didn't date for a long time after that. Not because I was bitter. Not because I hated love. But because I finally understood something important. Being alone is not the worst thing. Being lied to while you build a life around that lie, that's worse. I learned to listen to the discomfort in my chest. To trust questions. To treat secrecy like what it is, not mystery, not romance, but a warning sign. Sometimes people hide their families because their families are complicated. That's real. But sometimes people hide their families because their families know who they truly are. And if someone refuses, absolutely refuses, to let you meet the people who shaped them, don't ignore that. Ask why. Ask again. And if the answer never becomes clear, don't marry the fog. Because fog is where predators live. The truth always comes out eventually. Sometimes it comes out in a locked desk drawer. Sometimes it comes out in a stranger's kitchen. Sometimes it comes out with sirens and a badge and a sentence that makes your whole body go cold. The man you're engaged to doesn't exist. But when it comes out, you get a choice. You can collapse under it. Or you can use it to build something real. I thought I was looking for a husband. Instead, I found the truth. And I found my spine. If you made it to the end, thank you for listening. If this story gave you something, anger, hope, a lesson, please like, subscribe, and comment what part hit you the hardest. And remember, love that demands silence isn't love. It's control. This story is fictional and for entertainment purposes only.